Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Southern U Podcast. My name is Taylor McMurtry, and I'm joined as always by Matt Brock of Habitat First Properties, who is also the Ale Deer legend.
Legend.
It'll
never die.
One day.
And Mr. Jeremy Brock.
Jeremy
What?
Brock.
Oh, just kidding. What's that? What I say? Oh, just kidding. Jeremy Ferguson of
He might as well be a Brock.
yeah, that's true. True. Tut Land Company, Wildlife Consulting, aficionado, expert in all things, whatever.
No, I don't know about that either.
Well, I mean,
Expert in none, practitioner of many.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, guys, it's been a minute since all three of us have been able to get together. So,
Some of us have to work for a living.
yes, says the guy that
Turkey hunts every day.
That's
yeah,
not
y'all.
true.
Yes, an off.
You just told us.
No,
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
I turkey hunt most mornings that I can.
Look, but
that I
off
can.
camera,
that's
he
every
told
day-
us
every day.
He said I turkey hunt every morning, and then I cut it off and I go to work. You know, every time, but he goes every morning. So no sympathy over here, man.
Yeah, none. No.
You're just jealous.
Oh, there's no question. If I could walk out and hear a turkey gobble out my back door, I'd die and go to heaven. That'd be it.
I've had that happen 3 times in my life. Since moving into the new house.
Yeah.
That's 3 more times than I've ever had.
Yep.
Yeah. But we do have a good episode planned for you today. Pretty excited now. Everybody's kind of full swing in the middle of turkey season, and we're starting to see green things pop
I hate
up.
turkeys.
Mm-hmm.
They are so frustrating.
Says every turkey hunter.
Yep.
Until they kill their next bird.
Yep.
Then they love turkeys.
Yeah. I thought it was funny
Nah.
what Paul Campbell said, too. Is like we all like trick ourselves into saying like it's just one more piece of gear. If I get this piece of gear, if it's a call, you know, or whatever, then like this is it. This is what's going to make the difference. Like how many times do you do that before?
I have figured out what makes the difference in me not killing turkeys is we don't have any turkeys.
That's true.
That makes the most difference.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd
it
say.
does.
Yep. It's hard to kill them if they ain't here.
Mm-hmm.
And they not here. Not in our part of the world.
Nope.
But yeah, it's getting green around here. We're starting to see stuff spring up, and
Clover is absolutely exploding.
yeah, we're seeing all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff,
it is.
state and native stuff popping up everywhere. And so we want to take, whatever time we got here, hour-ish, and we're going to talk about spring food plots. Know that is on everyone's mind right now, especially not just deer hunters, but guys that are chasing around turkeys too are probably thinking the same things. So we're going to consult the experts here, and we're going to talk all things food plots in the spring, especially if you're in the South. Depending on the soil type that you got, just in Alabama, you take that for example. Georgia certainly would apply here too, but northern part of the state, you've got mountainous, rocky terrain that is kind of garbage. It's not good for growing much. It's hard to get stuff to grow in it unless you do a few things right. Come on down, and then you get kind of into the middle of the state and part of the Black Belt, which is unbelievably fertile, and you can kind of expand your horizons there to do some different things, and then you kind of get to the coastal, lower third, where things get really sandy and beach sand looking stuff down there. And all those things play a factor in what you can do and what you can't do, and, what you should expect from a food plot too. So I'm pretty excited because this is something that I've personally just kind of had some questions about, and, excited about asking some questions and seeing what you guys had to say about it. So if y'all are good, we may just actually, you know what, before we do that, we need to get a little update. I think the only person sitting at this table that has put a bird on the ground would be Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, and you and your dad got to double up.
Yeah.
Probably need to tell people about that. It's pretty awesome.
We've doubled in Alabama twice now, once in 2012 and once the first Saturday of this season. We've done it in Texas a couple times, but that's a totally different ball game down there.
Sure.
But
yeah.
So Dad and I split up that Saturday morning, and he went to a field where several birds had been pitching out in the mornings, and I just kind of went solo. He said that he had been hearing some birds gobble on a hardwood ridge several hundred yards away, and I just eased in there and sat down and got quiet, and birds started gobbling. I was listening to 1, 2, 3. I had 3 birds that I could hear clear as day within several hundred yards, and then his got fired up, and there were 2 over there. So there were 5 birds gobbling that morning, which is very unusual. It used to be like that, but haven't heard that much gobbling in a while. So I made a move, and I went toward a bird that I knew if I went that direction, I wouldn't interfere with his hunt at all. And as I'm moving around, I actually heard him shoot, and texted him. He's like, yeah, I got my bird. So congratulations were in order, and I had 2 birds ahead of me gobbling, 1 behind me. And I still just decided to leave that one behind me because I knew that he'd probably make his way toward Dad, and I just didn't want to, interfere with all that. So I had a bird about 300 yards out, and a bird that was, and I'm estimating here based off of my phone, I was able to triangulate a little bit, looking at the imagery, and probably 700 to 800 yards away, there was a bird I could barely hear. Whew. And I was like, well, I need to focus on this bird that's a lot closer. So I could only get so close to him because of property lines. Mm-hmm. Well, I got up on a high ridge, and I just let out a series of yelps. So he hammers, and then this bird way off in the distance, he hammers too. And I'm like, okay. So I'm going to make them think that I'm on top of this ridge, and then I'm going to ease down the ridge and get at the bottom where I know they have to come. If they come onto this property, there's only one way they can do that because there's a hardwood drain, and they have to go through those hardwoods. So this bird that's closest to me, he's not really responding to my call, and he gobbles some at me, but he's really just gobbling on his own, just doing whatever turkeys do. But this bird that was so far off, each time he gobbles, they were spaced out about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes apart, but he was 100 yards closer. Next time he gobbles, 100 yards closer. He's 100 yards closer. And I texted Dad, I was like, I think this turkey's fixing to commit suicide. So I just, I called, and then as he's getting closer, I just start getting farther away. And I'm doing that for a reason, because there's a cutover, and I knew if he popped up over the edge of that cutover at 70 to 80 yards and didn't see a hen there, the hunt was likely over. So I just kept easing down the hardwood drain, and I'm like, I'm going to make him come in here with me. Mm-hmm. So last time I called, I'm about 200 yards in the drain, and he gobbles just on the other side of the cutover. So when I called that time and he responded, I went to him and just stopped, and I sat down. And the next time he gobbles, he's 80 yards. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's fixing to happen. So I scratch in the leaves and purr, and he cuts me off. And I'm like, oh, yes, this is it. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Which I've been guilty sometimes of praising the Lord for a kill before the kill actually happens, and he humbles me and is like, no, Matt, it's not the time yet. But bird comes over the ridge, and he spits and drums and struts and does his thing. And I'm just soaking it in, loving every minute of it. And he works his way down the ridge, and he gets within shooting distance. And I'm like, rarely do I ever let a turkey do this. I normally shoot them as soon as I can, but I'm like, no, I'm enjoying watching this show. I just want to watch it for a few more minutes. So he stops at the bottom of the hill at like 40 yards, and he's spitting and drumming and doing his thing. And I'm just sitting there just, yes, I love it. And he comes up the ridge, and he starts to come to my left-hand side, so I just kind of swung on him a little bit as he went behind a tree, and he pops at it like 19 yards. And I smoke him, and it just makes me feel good. I love it.
You know what I heard that morning?
What's that?
Nothing.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Jeremy. I really am. I honestly, we split up too, because it was me and Dad and him, and he had decided to go to another property 7 or 8, 6, maybe 6 miles down the road. And I really wish that he'd have been with me, because at least he'd have got to hear some gobbling and maybe pulled the trigger too.
Yeah.
Because I don't
or
really
got some
care.
good footage.
Yeah, I don't care who shoots the turkey. I just don't like letting them walk off.
Liar.
Yeah. I mean, I prefer me kill it. I mean, who don't? If anybody sits there and tells you, I'd rather see somebody else pull it, they're lying. They're either lying or they don't enjoy turkey hunting. Because, I mean, you need to shoot one.
I would say it's a little different than deer hunting, though, because it's fun to play the game with turkeys. Like,
yes.
It's fun to hear them. You let off some yelps, and they hammer right back at you like, yeah, sure, it'd be cool to shoot it in the face. But if that doesn't happen, it's still awesome to just hear
it is. And, and on the morning of my birthday, which was April the 2nd, I always, Karen's like, what do you want for your birthday? I want to go turkey hunting.
Leave me alone. Let me go turkey
hunting. That's exactly what I say. So I get to a spot, and it's windy that morning. It's cloudy, overcast. Just when I say windy, I'm talking like 20, 25 mile an hour gust. And I got out of the truck and walked about 100 yards and heard a turkey gobble. I was like, okay, now where was he? Because I can't triangulate in that mess. He gobbles again, and I was like, okay, I think I know where he's at. So I started going that
Right
direction.
by my feed pile.
No. You don't even have permission to be on this place. So
I was talking about your feed pile.
oh, no, ain't no feed here. So I've killed 2 turkeys where he was gobbling, and that's the only reason that I knew where it was at. So I make my way over there, and I fool this bird from on top of a ridge. I have found it easier to call birds uphill rather than downhill. Once they get on a perch somewhere where they like to strut and do their thing, it's hard to get them to come downhill. So I'm above the turkey. He's in the bottom gobbling. Sounds like he's probably got hens with him because he's kind of gobbling to me some, really not. He's just gobbling whenever he wants to, and I'm like, well, he's got hens. So I played this game long enough, and I'm like, okay, I gotta move. So I went all the way around, got down in front of him, and I thought he was making his way to a ag field in the bottom of the valley there. I got down there, set up perfect, and I call. He answers. He's about 200 yards. I'm like, okay, it won't be long. I'm just sitting there. He gobbles again. He gobbles for an hour and never moves.
God.
Never moves. So I called to him a little bit more. Nothing. I mean, he responds, but he don't come any closer. I'm like, okay, it's on up in the morning. It's like 8:30. I gotta close the gap here. So I slip out of the field and start working my way to him. He's gobbling on his own, so I know exactly where he's at. I get within about 80 or 90 yards of him, and things are just beginning to kind of green up. So I've got just a little bit of cover, to conceal my movement. And I sit down on the other side of a ditch, and I'm like, I can call him right there. There's an opening right there, and I guarantee you he's been in it before, and that's where I'm going to kill him. It worked perfectly.
Read the script.
Perfectly. I called to him one time. He comes down the ridge, gobbling, stops right there where I thought he would go at 35 yards. Problem is, I don't feel comfortable with the shot because there's a few little vines in the way. He happened to stop in the one area that I didn't have a very clear view, and I wouldn't shoot. And looking back on it, I should have rolled his butt right there because, it was just like little tiny vines. It would have punched right through
Shooting
it.
TSS?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Oh, yeah. It would have killed him dead as a doornail. I wouldn't take the shot. And I waited for 8 minutes for that turkey to move. He stood in one spot, never moved his feet, and just spitted yes, it would be spat or spitted. Spat. He spat and drummed.
Spittled.
Yeah. So, anyway, I just kind of reached behind me and scratched in the leaves. I just wanted him to move. I didn't care if I spooked him or not. I just wanted him to move. So I scratched in the leaves just a little bit. And when I did, and I was like, all right, just take a step. Take one step. Well, he does, and he does this number right here. When you get that one eye, things are turning south.
Not good.
Yeah. Well, he putted, and I went ahead and got my bead on him. And he went behind a tree. When he came out from behind that tree, I saw his head, and I pulled the trigger. He took off running and putting. Only problem is I centered a pine tree about that big. I took pictures of it because that was my birthday bird. But catch and release on that one. I went back and hunted him the next 4 mornings and came very close to killing him every morning. And then I haven't heard him since. I haven't seen him or heard him since. I don't know if somebody else killed him, if he moved on or what. But I managed to scratch out another one last week. It was a really good bird. I was tickled to death with him. But, yeah, I've killed a couple and missed one. That's my fault. So
yeah,
I called one in for my son. He couldn't pull the trigger. He's just lack of experience. But
be honest. How hard did you get on him for not pulling the trigger?
I didn't. I really, because I can.
What are you doing?
I can be. Well, one reason I didn't get on him because I couldn't. We were 60 yards apart. But
physically couldn't.
I mean, I couldn't yell at him. So, and I wouldn't have yelled at him in this situation anyway. Called the bird in. Was probably 35 or 40 yards from him, but I made him lay down on the backside of a berm because there were no trees to get on. And I said, Luke, all you have to do is put your eyeballs and the gun barrel above that berm. That's it. Don't let that bird see anything else. You need to look like a turtle. You need a turtle and a stick. That's all you got to be. So called the bird up, and I was like, as soon as he crests that hill, you pop him because he'll be close enough. And the bird comes in gobbling, but he doesn't crest of the hill, he circles down the hill, and if I would have been there with him, I would have probably just said, Luke, just ease up and shoot him. Because he's close enough. You could tell by the way he was gobbling, he was close enough. He was within range, and I'd have just said, just pop up real quick and pop him. But I wasn't up there with him. I had backed down the hill to call. So the bird comes around, and I'm thinking, oh, no.
I'm going to kill him.
No, I don't have my gun. That was one of the stipulations of this hunt was I shall not carry a firearm with me. You know where I was.
He sounds bitter about it.
No. I'm not bitter. But I don't like watching turkeys walk off either. So
I can't believe he just said that.
I didn't have a firearm. I didn't. If I did, I'd have killed the turkey. No, I wouldn't have because I can't. I shouldn't have. I shouldn't. Anyway, the turkey comes around, and I'm thinking, well, he's just going to come around here and just like scream in my face. Well, he don't. He pitches up, and he flies into a tree, and he sat in that tree for an hour, walking back and forth on a pine limb, strutting and gobbling.
I hate a tree hopper.
Oh, my gosh. It drives me nuts. He did that for an hour, and the whole time, Luke would turn around and look at me every now and then. He'd just kind of ease his head around and look at me, and I was like, I don't really know how to communicate to you from this distance, but I was just like, we're just here to watch.
Just got to ride it out.
Yeah, just watch. I mean, maybe he'll pitch back down. The hen that he was with, she jumped the creek, and when she jumped the creek and went up the hardwood ridge, he pitched out and went with her. But anyway, so those are the hunts I've been on. It's been very successful. I would consider no more gobbling than I've heard this year. We've had a really good year because other than that morning where I heard 5 birds, I haven't heard 5 birds total the rest of the season on all mornings combined. Enough of that.
Enough of that.
Yeah.
Top food plots.
Yeah.
No, that's cool, man. And we can give you guys a quick synopsis of mine and Jeremy's experience in the woods.
Yeah.
Nothing. Goose egg. That's it. The end. Moving on.
Yep. Got to go, though.
Yep, that's there. You got to go. I mean, you can't kill them all.
Yeah, Jeremy, you need to come.
I in a total of, 2 or 3 hours that morning.
That's unacceptable.
When I was over there and heard nothing, and then a buddy of mine, Cody, and I went Saturday, this past Saturday, and we heard a couple birds, and of course we were hunting public land, and like happens a lot, we had a bird close, and then we also had a what seemed to be a very inexperienced hunter get close to. And,
That happens.
Number one rule is don't spook the turkey.
Nope.
But a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah, the situation was odd anyway. I mean, where we parked the truck, the bird was, unbeknownst to us, till we got out in the woods and sat there, and bird gobbled at first light. I mean, we were 150 yards from the truck, and that guy parked right behind us and walked right down the same road and commenced to calling to the bird after he heard him gobble.
I don't like that.
Just staying in the road.
Yeah, I don't like that.
You're going to deal with it public land.
Oh, I know.
Unfortunately.
I think that there's a certain amount of etiquette that should be shared amongst all hunters, and I don't know. When I've hunted public land, I've tried to stay away from other folks. Especially if they're working a bird, I'm not going after the bird.
I don't park on this, unless it's a huge amount of acreage, and this wasn't. I'm not going to park up behind somebody and walk down the same access trail. And it's because it's the only place to walk. So, whoever's in there's
right
only
there.
it somewhere.
But it's true.
And of course, then we saw 6 longbeards strutting on a place that I've got under contract to be sale and can't hunt it. But anyway, that's part of it. Anyway.
I think that hunting rights should come with the seller's contract.
Listing?
Yeah.
I think it ought to come with a listing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care if I sell it or not.
Yeah. Just let me hunt it.
Just let me hunt it, man. That's funny. Well, a good deal, guys. I guess we'll jump right into talking some spring food plots, changing gears a little bit. And this is kind of a conglomeration of our, I guess, kind of thoughts on it, but also this is kind of personally just some questions that I've got too. I have planted lots of food plots in the past, and clubs I've been a part of, leases, stuff like that. Now we're going to find out if I did any of it right. because I mean they would always grow, always have pretty good, lush green food plots. But
If they're growing, it's not wrong.
Right.
that's what I mean. But there's probably things you could have done, or I could have done that
Unless
made
it's
it
green
better.
with seed you didn't plant.
Yeah, really, that's not the right stuff. I didn't throw that out there.
Yeah.
I didn't plant that right.
Hey,
Chris.
there's a lot of that occurred this year. We had terrible growing conditions in the fall, and my food plots.
We didn't have
Still-
growing conditions in the fall.
No, they still look like
No.
crap.
No, and speaking of that, the first question here is, what needs to happen first? All right, so there's a lot of guys, I know that we've talked about this off camera, a lot of people are itching, can't wait to go put seed in the ground right now. Like, okay, aside from the time and what to plant and all that kind of stuff, we'll get to that later, but what needs to happen to this piece of ground that you want to plant first? What do you need to do to it to get it ready for seed?
Number one, you got to know what you're dealing with. So at some point, preferably before right now, you had a soil sample. And then you could take that soil sample to a co-op or fertilizer distributor or somebody and get somebody to build you a fertilizer based off of your soil sample instead of doing the typical 17, 13. That's kind of a Band-Aid or a blanket fix when you may be putting out several $100s worth of a synthetic fertilizer that you don't even need. You may have ample of a couple of different nutrients, and you may have the right micronutrients and macronutrients. You may only be needing nitrogen. Well, why buy the P and the K if you've got it and that's balanced? Or why put lime out if you've got a 6.5, 6.6 pH? But there's some people, they don't do it, and they just buy a bunch of expensive pelletized lime because they're small field and hard to get a truck to, and throw 17 and done with it.
Hope for the best.
Yep.
And no, the guys that are doing that, I mean, I guess it's going to fluctuate their success depending on each location, because
It is.
all soil's not the same. But in general, I mean, is that going to give them something?
It's going to give them.
yeah.
It's going to give them something. That's the deal. Is it's going to give them something.
But they may be throwing money away.
Right.
There
That's
could be
it.
a better way.
There could be a much cheaper way, and that's what we stress to people is doing the small steps, especially the soil test first. If you're doing a lot of acreage, that could save you thousands of dollars. These hunting clubs that are pooling together funds to plant 70 food plots, on 3,000 or 4,000 acres, they could cut back on a member or two, as far as the amount of money they have to generate if they just did things the right way.
That's true. Yeah.
And who's not for less members in the dang club?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, if we can save money and have less people, everybody's for that. So we got soil sample first. Moving on from that, now what?
Well, I think that it's important to
Depends.
Yeah, it does. It does depend. Knowing what your soil characteristics are, and then figuring out, okay, what are my objectives? What crop am I trying to grow and for who? What am I trying to accomplish here? So, you don't just want to throw a seed out there or a seed mix out there if it's not helping you achieve an objective. So, why are we doing this? We're doing this for deer. We're doing this for turkey, for quail, for doves in the fall.
If you're turkey or quail minded, why are you planting soybeans?
Yep.
If you're solely deer minded, why are you planting small seeded stuff that's for birds?
Right.
Obviously deer will eat some of those, but it wouldn't be preferred.
And you can accomplish feeding several species of wildlife with certain seed mixes. So, that's also an option.
Yeah.
Right.
And it depends on the goals of the landowner. Look, I deal with some landowners that they are just infatuated with conventional tillage and seeing a row, dirt, a row, dirt, a row, dirt, and one, it's expensive to do it that way. Two, you're inviting some weed competition doing it that way.
Bad weeds.
Yeah, especially if you're not going to take every step to combat weeds. If you're just going to do a pre-emergent and then put your crop in the ground and walk away, you're going to have nasty weeds.
Gotcha.
So it really depends on the long-term objective, and Matt said it, like who are you planting it for? Let's identify a species or a group of species and plant that way. And then also, does your soil need work? We're the Vitalize stuff. We're planting a lot of that on new fields that it needs organic matter. That soil needs building. Where we've got fields that have been in existence and been maintained and taken care of for years and years, that's got great topsoil and got great soil characteristics, then we may split the plantings up and plant just straight soybeans or straight corn or straight sunflowers. But the Vitalize, the mix, really helps us build soil and combat weeds in new territory.
I got you. Now, Matt said something a minute ago, and I just want to make sure I'm getting this right, or get you to kind of further clarify. You said you need to know what your soil characteristics are. So depending on, let's just say you had a piece of ground and you've owned it and you've planted it for, let's just say, 10 years in a row. Like, do you notice a trend, or do you notice a pattern every year? This particular piece of ground is always low in a certain mineral, or it's always low in, like, does that happen over and over, or can you kind of fix that and it doesn't do that anymore from here on out? Or
yeah, you can, but what I have noticed is that on certain fields, the nutrients that they're lacking that are recommended in the soil test are going to continue to be a nutrient you're going to have to add.
So it's
unless you fix it.
Unless you fix it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you fix it by spreading some kind of, like you said, like have a fertilizer built for that particular, or can you build it organically? Like
we were
it's both.
Both,
really.
But organically is really what I'm talking about, is just building that organic material back up. Because if you've got a highly erodible soil and you can build just a couple inches of topsoil on that over time, then it changes the soil characteristics.
Yeah, it changes the amount of nutrients the plants, can mine up and utilize, and that, really that's why, Vitalize isn't the only one. This, they're sponsored, just they've got good products, but those plants, that mix is designed so that those plants live symbiotically. One is mining P, one is mining K. 5 of them are releasing nitrogen. So you're trying to do that organically without the synthetic fertilizer.
Right.
But if you have deficiencies, and all soils do, generally speaking, because of past practices, you're going to have to fix that with the right types of synthetic fertilizer or natural fertilizer. I say natural, something chicken litter, something that's not man-made. Or, it can be pig crap or cow, there's a lot of different ways to get that. But you've got to change that soil makeup, and it takes time. But what I have found is in a 3 to 5 year period, you can have an appreciable difference.
Okay. So yeah, like in year 2 or 3, this property or this piece of ground is deficient in a few different things. We kind of take steps to amend that, and now from here on out, we don't see that as much. Okay.
Yep. And folks that have been doing the regenerative type ag practices for 15, 20 years, they may solely just be rotating their type plantings and never spray, never have the need for fertilize. But you can't walk out on a new piece of ground and do that. Okay. It's just not going to happen.
And so, I know you mentioned rotating those. I know you hear a lot of that in the ag world of, like, this year we're planting corn, next year we're planting soybeans, because we're trying to rotate those back and forth. Does the same hold true for food plots too, or can you plant a mix, the same
Well,
mix?
we're just talking about planting like a fall mix that does A, B, and C, and then the mix that you plant in the spring takes nutrients that were laid down from the fall mix.
Gotcha.
And then vice versa. So when you come back and you plant your fall mix, hopefully the summer crop laid down a lot of nitrogen in the soil, which the winter crop is going to take up.
Okay.
So, so I'm not necessarily talking about like rotating the types
from
of
year to
plants
year.
from year to year at the same time period. I'm just talking about your fall crop and your spring crop are feeding off of each other in a symbiotic relationship.
Gotcha. Okay. Makes sense. And so what about like, I know we're kind of still on that first question though. Is there any like, should you burn this off and then plant it? Should you disc it? Should you, drag it to get all, weeds and stuff out of it before you start throwing seed in the ground? Or does any of that matter?
It depends.
There you go.
Yeah, and I think you said you had a question on that. And it depends on if you're going conventional tillage or no-till.
Yeah, we got it down here, so we can kind of spend a little bit.
And I've reached a point where I do not concern myself with the presence of native weeds that people call them. If it's a native plant to that area and it's growing alongside what I've planted, I don't really consider that to be a big problem in most cases.
Depends on the weed.
It depends on the weed, but there's a lot of native plants out there that will germinate at the same time frame that are beneficial to wildlife. So some people just see, I didn't put that seed in the ground, I got to get rid of it. You may not have to do that.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and a lot of that is the mentality of it comes from the ag world, or the fact, just walk outside and look at most people's yards. They're manicured. They don't want to see something that's out of place.
Yep.
I mean, that's the definition of a weed. Basically, something that's not supposed to be there.
And we have fostered this mentality that our food plots have to look like ag
Golf
fields
courses.
that are for human consumption.
And they don't.
And they don't have to do that.
Right. And so, like, and you're saying some of these weeds, while they all have to take up some nutrients in order to grow. They're not necessarily in like direct competition competing for the things you're
not
putting.
major.
Right. It depends on what they are.
Yeah, but some of them are, and a lot of the weeds that have become a problem from certain ag practices and herbicide usage.
Constant soil disturbance.
Yeah,
herbicide use.
Like here on this farm, if I go out and we plant a pretty large garden every year, primarily corn. I can no-till that corn, and I'm going to fight Bermuda grass all summer long. I mean, that's what I'm going to fight. To me, it's a weed because we're trying to grow a crop for human consumption. If I do conventional tillage, then I'm going to fight red root pigweed and Palmer amaranth, which
pick your battle.
Right.
Look, either one is a nightmare to try to deal with in a corn stand. And with sweet corn, you've got very, very limited options on herbicides that you can use, unless you buy some of the stuff that's just unbelievably expensive. And I'm sorry, I'm just not going that route. Yeah. I mean, just look, a 50-pound bag of sweet corn now, just from Syngenta, is I think they priced it to me at the local seed distributor for like $1,200. Whoa. No, I mean, I wouldn't plant 50 pounds of sweet corn. I mean, that 50 pounds is a lot of corn.
I'd plant a pound and sell the rest to the neighbors.
Yeah. But, it's just unbelievably expensive.
Wow.
But anyway, got kind of chased a rabbit there. But depends on the weed. Mare's tail is terrible, especially here.
We have sickle pod
Coffee weed.
Cockleburr.
Yep.
And now, are some of these weeds that you're saying, like, hey, some of these are actually like edible for these, like
what we're talking about are
or
not wildlife
not?
plants.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, they're pretty much a problem from every direction.
Gotcha.
And if you can eliminate those problems, that's great. And with all of those species, if you can plant something that's more of a carpet, it's going to compete well, and it's going to keep the ground shaded enough. It's going to outcompete the mare's tail, the palmer amaranth, the red root pigweed, the sickle pod, stuff like that. You may get a few come up here and there, but you're not going to have a major problem. Gotcha. That's one reason I really like the Vitalize stuff, because it's all those seeds work together well, and they feed each other, but they also will outcompete the weeds for the most part.
And the limited till or no till planting methods are really good methods to use in areas where you do have these weed problems, because they happen to thrive at times of the year when you provide that soil disturbance for planting. If you run through and till that ground, plow that ground, you're going to have weed problems. And if you can prevent that step, then you have prevented the majority of your weed problems.
Gotcha. That's cool. That's good stuff, man. It's interesting. Learn something every day. I know we've kind of sort of bounced around a little bit and we kind of got into the no-till stuff, but what about like the ideal time frame? Because like I know before we turned the cameras on, you guys were like, I've got people blowing my phone up like, we got to plant. Just for you guys, it's April 22nd right now, and last night it got cold. I mean, we missed a frost by
a couple degrees.
I mean, it was cool last night. So, you got a lot of people are going, hey, this is too early. I know everything's starting to grow right now, and it's spring, and people are turkey hunting, and they're in the woods, and they're thinking about, the summertime, thinking about next year or next hunting season. But what time frame? And again, we're talking about the South in general. Like, we always have the trademark, not really trademark phrase, but the thing we've been throwing around a lot is it depends. But for the Southeast in general, what's a good time frame to get your planting started for spring plots?
First week of May.
First week of May.
Yep.
It's a good rule of thumb for North Alabama.
Yeah, Central Alabama
and South.
A week before or so. Yeah. But I wouldn't plant anything in Alabama, even down in Mobile and Baldwin, before April the 15th. That's just me.
Yep.
I know people that do. They do every year. But
and it depends on the species too.
Yes.
Corn can be in the ground much earlier than
they plant
most
corn down
else.
there in
February.
Yeah,
you can.
Yeah, March. So
we're not doing that because
and they're just hardier plants. Like they're just hardier. They can kind of handle the cold a little bit better than others can.
You put a soybean out there and just get a temperature range that mimics a frost. and they will shrivel up and die in a hurry. Look, and that's the reason I'm so anti-planting before the first week of April. Several years ago, I planted almost 100 acres of Eagle forage soybeans.
Oh, yeah, I remember you talking about this, yeah.
Is that when we had the frost on April the 28th?
Yep.
Oh, my God.
Last week of April.
It was cold. Low 20s, wasn't it? Was it low 20s, mid 20s?
I don't remember, but it was cold. But
smoked those beans.
Hey,
soybeans.
Add up 100 acres at one bag to the acre at $100 a bag.
I don't want to do that.
That's the money I lost in one night.
Yeah,
just gone.
I'll never forget that frost, because me and Dad killed a turkey on that Sunday morning, the last weekend in April, and it was probably one of the coldest mornings we had the entire spring. And I think it was April 28th, if I'm not mistaken.
I just know it was late April. So, it's been really warm this spring, and we're prepping to plant. Like, I've had tractors in fields and multiple farms where we're spraying, we're disking, things like that, getting ready to plant. But we're not putting seed in the ground yet.
Yeah, I usually do my prep work April the 15th, April 25th, and I'm not planting until after May 1st.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's important to know. Like, we're just talking about putting seed in the ground.
Yeah.
You can do all the prep stuff you want.
All you want
beforehand. But
as a matter of fact, if you're in an area that you do have some cool season grass problems where you're always competing in your fields with Italian rye coming up and fescue and all that kind of stuff, then go ahead and disc it up really early. Let all those seeds get some sunshine and rain and let them germinate, and then you can either disc it again or you can spray it and knock out some of your competition.
Okay.
So that's what we do.
So you're saying it's actually better to let that stuff go ahead and germinate and then spray it instead of trying to like knock it out beforehand, I guess.
If you're going to do tillage, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're tilling.
If you're no tilling, then there's no need.
Right.
Yeah, you just spray and plant.
Yep.
Or you can just plant right through what is already there.
Plant.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of planting green, and by that, just plant while everything's still growing. You haven't sprayed done anything like that with a drill or a planter, and then come back behind it and spray.
Okay.
So about the time, depending on what kind of burn down herbicide you're using, those chemicals are going to take anywhere from a week to a little over 2 weeks to kill the plant. So about the time that plant that is there is dying or dead, you're going to have germination on your other.
Okay.
So it gives it a chance to get up and then put on its canopy and then shade everything else out.
Gotcha. That's cool. That's time frame. Just basically just wait for May and then go for it there to be safe. I know we've already kind of talked a little bit about till versus no till. Is there anything you guys want to add to that, or any more kind of details or situational instances where you might do one over the other?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm answering the text, but yeah, I got some things to add. If at all possible, if you've got access to the drill or no-till planters, it is the superior method.
Which is? Well, you said if you've got it.
If you've got it, use it. It is the superior method. The equipment is expensive, why most people don't do it that way, or they've got limited access to it. I've got no-till planters, and we've got access. If I have a problem with one of mine, I've got access close by to rental equipment that I can rent pretty cheap. And I've had to do that. Matter of fact, I did it last week. I rented a drill to plant some grasses for my cattle pastures. But anyway, but yeah, if you've got it, use it. It's going to be much more efficient for you.
Gotcha.
I mean, where these guys are disking up cool season grasses and trying to put in, pea plots or soybean plots, to get the ground broke up really good with a cool season food plot on it. God, you may run over it, 3, 4, 5 times to try to get that broke up enough to get good seed to soil contact. So you got 3 to 5 passes there. Then you got to pass putting your seed out. Then you've got to pass either covering it or cultipacking it or both. And then if you're doing herbicide applications for, pre-emergent, you've got another pass. So to where I can make 2 or 3 with minimum till or no till, counting your fertilization, your planting, and your herbicide, to somebody that may have 7 to 10 passes with a tractor on the other.
Yeah, it's a lot going on, I guess, to be mindful of, or a lot to consider. If you're
a lot of fuel and a lot of hours where you button a tractor seat. That's not necessary.
That's fine if you're a small landowner and that's therapy time for you.
Oh yeah.
But when you've got clients to plant, you can't be wasting time like that.
No,
you've got a short window to get it done.
And as a consultant, look, we've got clients and we're trying to be efficient, but it's not necessarily just the time and the efficiency. That equipment and that maintenance cost to us is huge. So if my tractor's running on your place, it's making money every minute it's running. So if I'm having, if you're one of these guys that wants plowed ground, dirt road,
right,
it's going to cost you 3 times, 4 times as much for me to plant your plots as it is the guy that I can run in with a no-till planter, plant, spray, and leave.
Yep. Sure.
Not to mention just a pain in the butt to be at one place for several days.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think when we move on to this next question, I think it'll kind of further confirm this too. But I think what I'm hearing both of you guys say is, depending on the situation and the circumstance, there's not necessarily a definitive right or wrong way to do some of this stuff.
That's right.
There's, and I think that's probably what I've learned just since we started doing this, is just the approach to habitat management in general. There's a lot of different ways to skin the cat, and there's not necessarily one that is like definitively this is the gospel. This is how you have to do it if you want success.
Now there are guys who will tell you that's the case.
Oh yeah, they'll tell you their way. Their way is the right way, and you've got you got 2 people that believe that, and that's the people that's got the attitude that they're the only people that know how to do anything in that arena. Or you've got the other guy that said, well, by God, my granddaddy did it that way, and that was the right way. Well, I'm sorry. Your granddaddy and your daddy might have been wrong.
Right.
Could have been.
And unfortunately, likely were, because how we manage has changed dramatically. And a lot of the conventional practices that, were started in the 30s and 40s, a lot of people don't even do any of them anymore.
Well, there's probably not a ton of science that backs those methods. You know what I mean? Like there is now. You can kind of pull some data and have some real-time statistics to back up the reason why you do what you do.
Right.
And probably wasn't a ton of that then. And that kind of goes, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but something I used to say at the church a lot, there's not very many absolutes in life in general. Like there's not a ton of like, this is the only way you have to do something, and if you don't do it this way, it's not going to work at all. There's not very many of those. I used to tell students all the time, like, if you don't like a Ford, then drive a Chevy. Nobody cares. If you don't like Apple, get an Android. If you don't like, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter.
That's right.
But in very, very few instances, there are a few absolutes, and this is the only way that this works. You know what I mean? But the vast majority aren't like that.
Right.
And so this seems like there's a lot of ways to have success depending on the situation. So
the only absolutes in fertilize, good gracious, in food plotting is when it comes to herbicides. Read the label. That's an absolute, because if you spray 2,4-D on clover instead of 2,4-DB, it absolutely will kill it.
It will. And I knew better. That's not a mistake I made out of ignorance.
In a hurry.
It was being in a hurry, because you've got 2,4-D butarac and 2,4-D butoxyethyl ester. Both of them have 2,4-D with a B word afterwards, and I just snatched one.
Yeah.
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 But butoxyethyl ester and butarac are 2 totally different chemical compositions and kill 2 totally different things. So that's the absolutes that you will run into.
Yes.
is the herbicide, because if you use the wrong one, you're out of luck. You killed it. There's no nursing it back to health.
No, and it also it occurred in the first year of establishment, so it was already
weak anyway.
It was weak. You've got to really establish clover for a year or 2 before it really becomes established.
Right.
So yeah,
I will say this: if you're not familiar with your herbicides, consult a professional.
Do that.
And I will put asterisks beside that and say, not every store that sells them has an expert there.
That's right.
To tell you what this is for. If you've got major questions, call your local extension office.
And you can also, and I encourage everybody
read the label.
Pull the label. You don't have to go get it off the shelf. You can pull the labels off of Google.
Yep.
Every herbicide
on your
out
phone.
there.
Yep.
So if you've got 10 or 15 minutes to sit down and read, just sit down and read it.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, moving right on down the line here, what species, what mixes, what things perform well in southern climates, southern soil types. And again, we've talked about the vast like variety that the South kind of offers.
Are you ready?
Yeah, you ready? Ready, guys?
It depends.
There you go. I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
We got to have some stuff made up with that on it.
Look, the species depends on your goals and your soils.
Yep.
I mean, you can plant. I mean, heck, you can even plant clover in the spring. I don't do it because clover's tough to establish through a hot summer for us in South.
I've tried it in the spring, and you'll get varied results, but never great results.
Mm-hmm.
Not here. You can do it in the Midwest when they've got slightly lower temps and longer periods of time that it can establish. But here, we go from wet and cool to hot and dry that fast, and it just doesn't do well.
But there are so many different species out there. I'm just shooting for something that's got as much protein as I can pump into a whitetail. If it's birds, it's something that's going to be as prolific of a seeder as I can get. And, obviously certain species, are attracted by other plants versus, another. But for doves, I'm going sunflower, sorghum, millet. And in odd instances, which the seed's really, really expensive, I like having a woolly croton field.
And you can that may already be present on some sites, some agricultural sites, and it's a native. And
some of your best dove hunting will be on a dang clear cut that's full of woolly croton.
Yes,
That's awesome.
But you can buy a woolly croton seed, and if you establish it early enough that it does produce a lot of viable seed, then you don't have to plant anymore. Once you disturb the soil, it's going to keep regenerating. Okay. It's established. But for deer, I'm shooting for peas, soybeans, lab, some corn, and in instances where it's small fields, I'm going with a mix that's got a lot of different things in there. The Vitalize, I think, has got 14 to 16 different species in it.
That's a lot.
But it depends on what you're after.
Yeah. Matt, anything to add to that?
No.
That's about
Nope.
it.
I like the legumes for deer this time of year. So peas, beans,
yep.
lab.
And if you don't know if you have a weed problem or not, or you do know you have one, use something that's Roundup ready.
Okay.
So that you can spray Roundup over it and control those.
And you better get it early, because things like sickle pod, Roundup will kill sickle pod as long as it's below about
6
high.
inches.
Yeah, but once it gets up, 8-10 inches high,
It'll ding it, but it won't.
Yeah, it doesn't do a very good job.
But now there's a blue million herbicides out there that are for different things, and we can talk about that more.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. This last one here before we wrap up is fertilizer / herbicides. I know there's a couple schools of thought, I guess, but there's a big push now. I mean, you see it everywhere. You don't have to be a soil scientist or anything to be able to go to the grocery store and everything is organic and non-GMO and not, you know what I mean? Everything is just like, we're not adding any kind of synthetics, not anything that's man-made to our product, and I get it.
And by the way, that's greenwashing, because that's baloney.
Yeah, that's right.
98% of that is baloney.
Yeah.
It's being greenwashed.
So, speaking of that, there's some people that are really making a strong push to like, I will never, ever buy any kind of fertilizer to put on my fields ever again. You know what I mean? There's no need for it. My stuff does better without it. And then you got guys that are like, hey, we wouldn't have plots if we didn't put something on them, because our soil type's so bad. So I know the answer is it depends. But aside from that, like on the fertilizer side of things, what do you feel like the best approach to that is? If you're, again, just your opinions, if this is a client you're working with or this is your own personal property.
Jeremy touched on it earlier. What I typically do is I will look at the soil test and whatever crop that we're trying to grow and I'll call my local feed and seed store, and I have my fertilizer custom blended for that site, and then I will spread it in bulk in a buggy. I just haul the buggy out there after they mix it.
Yeah. I mean, you're almost always going to need something unless you've been doing no-till regenerative type ag practices for a long period of time. And if you say that your food plots are just as good as mine, where I'm following the soil sample, then you're mistaken. I mean, you're just downright wrong. I'm sorry that we're going to have nutritive quality differences in our plants, which, you know, is one of the main things. And number two, you're not going to have as healthy of a plant itself. So you're not going to be producing the tonnage or producing the high a quality nutrient to the deer as I am.
Gotcha.
If those plants are lacking. And look, there's a lot of times that the only thing you need is macronutrients or micronutrients and nitrogen. You know, you may have the P and K. I mean, the place we're building down in Marshall County, we've got 40 acres of new fields. Used to be timber stands. Man, the pH is great. It's in the 6s. We've got good P and K. The only thing we have to add is, and really we won't put much nitrogen because we're putting in legumes, but we'll put a little bit. But we are extremely deficient in magnesium. So we're going to go heavy with magnesium and try to get that.
Is that relatively common for a new field, like something that used to be timber stand? And now
being that low in magnesium here with the type soil that we are in is kind of odd.
Okay.
Because we're in a heavy clay river bottom soil there, right on the bank of the Tennessee River. It is odd that we are low. But I mean,
I've seen a lot of times your iron
We
and
are.
magnesium kind of, you know, they kind of go hand in hand. So we've got real red clay soils back home, and you know, magnesium's typically not an issue there.
yeah.
Gotcha.
So, look, soil tests don't lie unless you got a terrible lab.
Yeah.
I mean, but there's a reason farmers and agriculture guys can produce, 200 bushel an acre
Yeah.
corn and whatever bushel acre beans is. They've got this down to a science. If you think you can go out there and look and go, yep, it probably needs this, and you're going to be as accurate and grow a good and healthy of a plant, you just living in la la land.
Right. Not true.
Nope.
And herbicides too. I mean, it's kind of the same deal. I feel like you almost have to have some form of herbicides if you want to not choke out, you know, whatever it is that you've spent money on and spent the time on.
A lot of times, yes. A lot of folks just aren't going to spend the money or take the time to do it. But if you're spending $100 a bag on seed and several $1,000s in fertilize, and you got all this tractor time, why not combat the weeds the right way? And generally speaking, you can do that. You know, have two different applications, and you'll be good. Sometimes one application is good, depending on the residual. But running a pre-emergent or an incorporated before planting or at the time of planting, and then coming back and do a post-emergent, generally will get you through a season, because once you get canopy closure on these plants, there's not going to be a lot come in on them, because they don't get sunlight.
Right. Gotcha. Cool. Well, guys, that's pretty much everything that we wanted to cover, I think, in the spring plot stuff. And again, you guys, please feel free, if you got any questions or concerns about this kind of stuff, shoot us a DM on Instagram. We're pretty active on there. Feel free to reach us. You can email all of our emails are pretty much the same. Taylor at the Southern U, Matt at the Southern U, or Jeremy at the southernu.com. And you can reach us there, and we'll answer any questions that you got the best we can. And certainly, if I don't know, I'll point you in the direction of one of these two dudes. So,
yeah. Takeaways. Look, do your soil sample, read the label, follow the label on herbicides.
right.
I mean, that's if you just do those two things, really, is get a soil sample and follow it, and then read the label and follow it, you will be more successful than you were if you weren't doing that.
Right.
Yep. No doubt. Yeah, I think that's about it. Guys, please stay tuned. I know we've all been really, really busy. These guys have been burning nonstop and doing site visits and all kinds of consulting work. Jeremy's got the real estate stuff going too. We just moved into our new house yesterday.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So we've all been kind of running in different directions and stuff, but stay tuned
Been
to
a
our
tough run.
Yeah, it has been. But stay tuned to our, especially our YouTube channel in the coming weeks and months. We're going to actually do more kind of in the field type content and go along. We may get some aerial, drone coverage of burns or, planning, that kind of stuff, and kind of give you a little bit more, in-depth look and approach behind some of this stuff we've been talking about. And we've always said this is more than a hunting podcast. We really want this to be a habitat management, all things land related type deal for us. So just stay tuned. Like I said, to YouTube and all of our socials, and hopefully you'll get to see some more of that stuff coming out as we start to kind of somewhat slow down a little bit. So get a little bit more, I get a little less crazy.
I need about 6 more weeks.
Yep.
And I'll be able to slow down a little.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much. We appreciate you, and we will see you on the next one.
Peace out.